of Ask the CEO, a show that comes to your screens every Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. here on Church of Uganda Family TV. On this show, just in case you're joining us for the very first time, we bring you stories or people who have stories that we believe can leave indelible marks on one of the chapters of your life, which is why we are relentless about it. This week we have a very fine gentleman, a seasoned writer, very imaginative, a man who, like a hot knife cutting through butter, brings out butter from the dark. He speaks life into imaginative stories. I just can't imagine how impactful this is going to be to just watch this man speak to the African youth tonight. Now we're going to take a very short break, and when we return we'll be listening in from our guest as well as putting description to face. Please do stick by. Yeah, welcome back from that very short break. Now, like I did promise, we have a privilege, an honor of having a very fine gentleman. His name is Namale, Mr. Lawrence Namale. It's a huge pleasure having you on the show.
Yes, sir. I'm so happy to be in this place today.
Yeah.
I think this is my first time to be on TV in 2022, and so it's a privilege.
Good stuff.
Yes.
It's could you please say hello to the viewer and introduce yourself briefly before we dive in?
All right. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, whatever place it is that you're watching this show. My name is Lawrence Namale, and my purpose in life is to help you identify, own, and deploy your purpose in life. I've been doing that for the past 10 or so years, using my gifts and using my talents. My calling is to inspire hope and to enrich lives worldwide, and I'm glad to be in this place today. Thank you for hosting me.
Huge pleasure, I'm telling you. Words can't express the symbolism. A man who has a lot of work that speaks about him, not just his life, but also the lives that he has impacted. We're talking in excess of 10 plus books that have his skill of art that he delivers in his fingers. Now, tonight's topic or theme is living a purposeful life, and I have no doubt we couldn't have found a better person than Mr. Namale. Now, like we always do on the show, if you could be very kind enough to me and of course to our dear viewers, we like to ask the question, Mr. Namale, where does your story begin?
There are three kinds of people, actually. There are those ones who believe in pro-life, and then those ones who believe in pro-choice, actually in the Americas, and then there are those ones who believe in pre-choice. So pro-life are those ones who are thinking that every life begins at conception. And pro-choice are those ones who believe that every life begins at birth. But pre-choice believe that life begins even before your mom and dad met. Ordained by God, chosen by God, set apart by God. God had an idea of who you are, where you're going to be placed, what you're going to do. Thought about you first, then crafted you and put inside of you the necessary gifts, the necessary talents, the necessary capacity, so that you can be able to function on purpose. And that's where my story began.
Wow.
My story began, I think, from the throne room of God. And it's not unique.
Interesting.
It's like everyone else is that way. All of us, our story begin from there. But actually, in practicality, I was born in Kenya, in a place called Eldoret. That's where my mom and my dad met in the education sector. I was born there in 1979, and I grew up partly in Eldoret, and life was good. because both of them were working.
Yeah.
Mom was a teacher, and those days in the 70s, teachers were
Absolutely.
highly respected people.
Very much so.
My father was actually working in the education department as an education officer, so life was okay.
Yeah.
And then he transitioned and moved on to a corporate organization.
Okay.
We moved together with him to a place called Mumias, but then he lost his job. I think I was 5 years of age or something like that. And so we had to retreat to the village. So from 5 all the way to, 12, 17, my life was village, with no hope of ever getting out of that place.
Wow.
Because environment always has an impact on someone's life.
Yeah, psychologists say that from between the ages of 0 and 5, kids determine what's available to them.
Exactly.
It's very highly impressionable.
Yeah.
So from 0 to 5, you have a good life.
Good life.
And all of a sudden,
you're rooted in the village. And in the village, the first experience for me in the village was very annoying, because we were supposed to go to the village school without shoes. As in, you're forced to get off of your shoes and walk to the village school. And I didn't want to do that. I remember the first beating I ever received from my father was that particular day. It was
when
a
you were
Monday
supposed to report.
in 1985. We were supposed to report to school. But I didn't feel like, I felt like the world was conspiring against me. That where is the good life that we used to live? Where are the cities? Where are the shoes? Where are the cool kids that we used to hang around with? Now I'm in this place, I don't even know the vernacular language. I'm not even speaking the vernacular language. And I'm not supposed to wear my shoes and so on and so forth. And I'm being forced to live like this. It didn't make sense to me at that moment in time. I refused to go to school, and they beat me up. That was the first beating I ever received. And even up today, I still feel painful, because I thought it was unfair. I thought it was unfair to beat me up without an explanation, all right, without some kind of counseling and telling me things have changed. Things are going to be tough. At least prepare me, But to just clobber me from out of the blue, it was tough. But, there was nothing I could do about it. So I ended up doing my entire 7 or so years, 8 years in the village, competing with other kids. I was always top 5 there and so on and so forth. But when it came to the end of the final year examinations, Kenya Certificate of Primary Education, I came top at that particular moment.
Wow.
in class. The only guy who came above me was a guy who was doing it the second time. But I came top the whole class, and I was taken into the best school in the province in Western Kenya. The school is called Kakamega High School. So I ended up there. And one of the things that I need to tell parents, by the way, is this. When we are taking our kids to school, this is my own opinion, it's not professional, but it's my own opinion. I think it's important for us to look at maturity when we're taking kids, especially to high school. When we're transitioning them into life outside of the home, we need to look at maturity. I went to high school at a very young age. I believe I was 12, 13 there, after spending 8 years in primary.
Elementary school,
So when I went to high school, the guys in high school were big boys. I was a tiny guy. So for the most part, I was just playing around school. I was intelligent, I was smart, but I didn't basically settle down to get the best that I can be able to get out of high school. I played a lot. I woke up in Form 3 at around third term.
In soccer, we would call that just about half time.
Yes, that's when I woke up. By that time, it was a bit too late.
Yeah, sometimes.
So the thing that carried me through was just my basic natural intelligence. You see, we have basic natural intelligence, and that intelligence has to be worked on. When you work on your natural intelligence, it becomes a skill. You become a virtuoso in it when you apply yourself. Which means there's a book called Talent is Not Enough, and it's actually true. When you have talent,
and
you are blessed. But that's not enough. You've got to work on it. And the guys who work on talent are, in my thinking, the guys who normally work on talent are guys who are mature. Otherwise, they should be under someone else who is honing their talents. Like now, my kid is 10 years old and so on. He loves multimedia, all these things of TV. He can't do it alone.
Yeah.
He has to be under me.
Yes.
Has to be under me to chisel him, to sharpen him, and so on. I'm not forcing him to what I want, but I'm looking at him at what he has, and I'm looking at the environment, creating the environment that he can be able to thrive.
Yeah.
I'm not leaving him on his own.
Yeah.
I believe when I was growing up, I was left on my own. My gifts, my talents, my gift in writing. I knew my gift in writing in class 8 in primary school. But it's 20 years later that I started using that gift. And today, I am earning from that gift much more than I'm earning from my education, so to speak, my physics, mathematics, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm earning from my gift, my talent of writing.
Yeah.
From that particular, I'm earning much more from that than from that one. So I was saying that I woke up at that time, Form 3. By the time it was time to do the examinations in Form 4,
yes,
it was too late. So I couldn't get into the university. At that moment in time, in 1996, not very far away, but in 1996 there were very few public universities in Kenya. Even in Uganda,
even
very
here,
few.
absolutely.
Because I remember at some point in time, Makerere was the only public university in the country.
Yeah, the rest were maybe vocationals that have since evolved into universities.
Yes. So for me, I failed to go into university by about 2 or so points, which is, let me tell you, margins, this small. As in 1 point categorizes you as a failure, or 2 points. So you spend the rest, and that's what has been affecting me for the rest of my life. I spent a lot of my life
crying about
I'm a failure. 2 points. Margin of 2 points. You spend the rest of your life walking around not wanting to take responsibility, thinking that you are a failure because you don't have a university degree. Up to today, even as I speak, I don't have that university degree, but it worked on my psyche a lot. But it was just a matter of margins. So I ended up, and let me tell you what happens to guys like us who fail by a small, tiny margins. And we know we have the capacity. Remember in primary school, I was number 1.
Yeah, you were always up there.
So I was the guy with the promise in the family. The light, the beacon of light was me in the family. And you can be sure that when I did not go to the university, I was the disappointment of the family. Because my parents, especially my father, cherishes a lot of education. Even my mom.
You said earlier, because the places, the positions they held at the time were biased. To the education corner.
So my dad, who will not say it visibly, but you will see. You will see that he is actually disappointed with this guy. It's basically become like a burden to him or to the family. Because all of their eggs were put in one basket, which is what? University degree. Now it's not there. And there was an option of going to university. They used to call it second module, module 2. But that was private, and you will pay top dollar. They didn't have that top dollar. So you have a guy who is intelligent. You have a guy who has a promise. Remember, you're pre-chosen by God. You have a guy who is gifted, who is talented. You have a guy who has actually demonstrated from school that he is intelligent, he can perform. But you have this guy with 2 points less. Adrift. And now he's like relegated to nothingness in life because he doesn't have that degree.
It is said that if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend the rest of its life thinking it is a failure. Yet it's very incredible at swimming.
That's it.
Tell us, Mr. Namale, how do you actually pick up the pieces? As a matter of fact, before hosting you on the show, I tried to look up a few things about you, and one of the things I saw and I do relate with is that you share in the school of thought that sometimes that a setback could actually, or is actually, a setup for a comeback.
It is.
How do you pick the pieces together from this expectation and then that is not made, which gives birth to disappointment? Your parents have a way they were, looking at you. Now they have a way they are looking at you. Then maybe your siblings, maybe your distant cousins, maybe. How do you actually put all these pieces back together to jumpstart yourself and chase this thing called make sense out of this thing called life?
There's a lot of components that go into this, because at some point in time, every human being has that inner voice inside of them that always tells them, you are something. Even if there's no evidence outside, there's no evidence that you have a job, you have a car, you have a hot wife, you have all these things, but there's just that whisper in your spirit that keeps telling you, you are something. You are someone important. I think the first thing we need to do is to listen to that voice. One of the biggest mistakes we normally make is to listen to the outside voices, and then long enough those outside voices become internal voices, which now curtail our growth completely. But we have to still continue listening to us. And I was saying earlier that guys who have missed to go to university or to have chances in life like that, they now become so, for lack of a better word, ravenous, like a hungry lion. Anything you give these guys, they are going to devour it, because that's the only thing that they have. They don't take life for granted from that moment on. That was my story. When I was going through newspapers at that moment in time, I saw an advert for a Management Information Systems course, 2-year course or something like that, diploma. And for that moment, at that moment in time, I always thought that information has to do with journalism. Two things that I wanted to do in life. I wanted to become either a lawyer, because of the human rights activists that were going around in the environment at that moment in time, doing stuff, you know, trying to liberate Kenya. And then I wanted to become a journalist, because journalists are the ones who used to write those stories. So those two things were. So when I saw information technology, again, nobody had advised me about careers. You see, another thing, and that goes actually to parents and to society today. There needs to be advice to parents, I mean to these kids, about careers that they're supposed to take. And the careers they're supposed to be things that these guys are good at, they love them, they have the capacity, and so on. And so in the environment, what we're looking at, we're not looking at putting things from the environment into the child. We're actually looking at getting things out of the child and creating an environment that those things that are outside, that are inside of the child, can be supported by the environment. That's how we raise ourselves in terms of careers and in terms of purpose. But at that moment in time, nobody had told me about information technology, what it is. I didn't know. I thought it was journalism. So I go to the school, my father pays, and my father went to the caller, long story. You know, he was a pastor at that moment in time. Went to the caller there. It was one of the most embarrassing things for me. Why? Because he was looking for favor from the school, so that, you know, they can enable him financially. It was very embarrassing for me. But so I got there, I get into this information technology class, and we're taken into the computer lab. So I was studying computers instead of journalism that I thought I was going to study. But this is the thing. When someone has lost an opportunity in life and you give them another small chance like this,
a small window.
We normally say this about the devil. You give the devil a foothold and it takes
you
the whole life.
Miles.
That's it about the guys who have lost a chance, and then we're given a sniff of an opportunity.
They most times want to make the most.
We make the most out of it. That's what I did. If you want to turn your life around, the problem with us is that we normally look for answers outside of us. Answers in another country, answers in another person, and so on. The answers are two things. Number one, what's inside of us, and number two, what is around us. So for me, what was inside of me, you are someone who is great. It was whispering inside of me. But then number two was the decision I made. This diploma is all I have in life, and therefore I am going to make the best and the most out of it. Today, if you ask the guys that I was with in that diploma class, they will tell you that was a crazy guy. In terms of books, they will go to they will come to the library specifically to see how Lawrence studies. Because I had made a decision that this is it. For me, this is it. If it's this diploma, I am going to give the absolute best.
Nothing short
of it. Less. It's a diploma, yes. It's a certificate, yes. See, the problem with us is that we want to give the best to a degree or a PhD or a master's. But I'm telling you, even a certificate Even something that doesn't have a certificate, as long as it is what you have on the table today. Let me tell you, one of the most common things in life today is something that is on the table with us.
Yeah.
God asked Moses,
take for granted,
what do you have in your hands? That's it. That's the question I'm going to ask any youth today. Your breakthrough is not outside. It starts from here, where you are and within you. Maybe what you have is a passion for phones. I don't know, repairing phones.
Yeah.
Maybe it is singing or writing songs, whatever it is. That is what God has given you. And the Bible says, to whom much has been given, much is going to be required.
Yeah.
Start with what you have in your hands and let it be the one that is going to be the ladder you're going to use to climb.
Yeah.
You have no business being given another opportunity when you have an opportunity today here, and the little you've done with it, there is nothing to show out of it. So if you wanted to turn your life around, use what you have today and give the absolute best. If you're given an opportunity to be on TV, give the absolute best. If you're given an opportunity to speak, maybe it's a Thanksgiving at a family dinner or something like that, go and do a research and deliver that speech 120%. Give it your absolute best, whatever it is. Our biggest problem, another biggest problem is this: we only want to do life transactionally. That means that whatever it is that is going to pay us at the end of the month, or at the end of the week, or at the end of the project, that's what we want to give our best to. But the ticket in life, let me tell you, is this: life has a 24-hour, 7 days a week interview. Life is always interviewing us.
Every minute.
Every single minute you wake up, it's always interviewing us. My friend called Betty Ogiel, she says that when opportunity meets two people sitting on a bench, opportunity is going to introduce herself to the most prepared of those.
Absolutely.
In other words, what you have today in your hands right now, give it your absolute best. Life is interviewing you for it. Interviews are not those things that are happening in boardrooms when you've made an application to a company,
for a job,
MTN, Coca-Cola, and then you're called for an interview. It's happening today. When you're sleeping, when you're watching that movie, an interview is going on in your life for you. You're being interviewed by life itself. And the opportunities you're going to get in this life will be as a result of how you've answered the questions that life is throwing to you in terms of your life interviews, happening 24 hours, 7 days a week. And that's why I normally tell you that I don't believe in this branding ourselves jobless. It is self-defeatist to begin with. You know why we call ourselves jobless? Because nobody is going to pay us for whatever we are doing at the end of the month. But there are very many things we can be able to do before the month ends and we don't get paid. But we get paid in terms of growth. We add our value, we add our stature, we increase in our capacity, we grow, we become better. And therefore we are answering the interview of life. And therefore when an opportunity comes, guess what? We are ready.
We grab it by the horns.
Opportunities will never introduce ourselves when we are not ready.
Les Brown says it is better to be prepared and the opportunity comes by. Pretty much what Betty talks about, your friend. It's better to be prepared and the opportunity comes by than for the opportunity to come by
and you're not ready.
That's
how life is. So our youth need to understand this. And we're supposed to, if you're going to live a purposeful life, you're going to inject purpose in your day. Every single day you inject purpose in it. You ask, the day is like a slave. What is today going to bring out? What is going to be the productivity of today, whether you have a job or not? Whether you have a job. Remember, life is the one that is doing interviews for you. And in so doing, as you are answering the questions of life in that interview, you are preparing yourself. When the opportunity comes, you are not going... You see, when the opportunity comes, you're not going to start preparing. It's too late.
It just... The best that could happen is you pounce on it in the moment.
Actually, a very philosophical thing I'm going to tell you is this.
Yeah.
That for the guys who are answering the interview of life today, for the most part, those guys, they never succeed or they never get into interviews. They always get the offer because they've been prepared all along. When I got out of that particular college, I did an interview. In fact, I did not even do an interview, by the way, because there was a guy who went ahead and started working as a consultant in an organization, an IT firm and so on. And I was jobless at that moment in time. Then there was a vacancy. Then he remembered, there used to be a crazy guy back at college. Let me call him up.
Hold up. Thank you so much for watching. This is Ask the CEO, a program that comes to you live every Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. only on Church of Uganda Family TV. Now earlier when introducing Mr. Namale, I said this about him, and I said it, I meant what I said, because I said what I meant. He's a man who brings the butter out of the dark, a man who helps people discover their passions, their purpose for life. Now we're going to take a very short break. When we return, we have this man's former colleague at the college buzzing him about a possible opportunity. Now this show, you remember, is powered by Young and Flourishing, and it's always a pleasure knowing that you are tuned in and watching us on the other side. We'll be right back after the break. Please stay with us.
Welcome to Coffee Production Tips, brought to you by Uganda Coffee Development Authority. Uganda Coffee Development Authority is the government agency mandated to promote and oversee the coffee industry as a whole by developing research, facilitating coffee production and productivity, by training farmers on good agricultural practices, controlling the quality and improving the marketing of coffee for the benefit of stakeholders, planting coffee seedlings, mulching, training coffee seedlings, and stamping coffee. Farmers are encouraged to adopt good agricultural practices to get high yields, good prices, and better income from coffee. These tips are brought to you by Uganda Coffee Development Authority.
This is how we play. Play with power.
This is how we do it.
How we put a team together. This is how we pass on greatness. Because with this team to inspire us, there's nothing we can't do.
Go for goals and win! Buy a Pepsi glass bottle or Pepsi Max 330 ml. Check under the crown and win soda, TVs, caps, t-shirts, and cash. Redeem prizes at any Pepsi depot or truck countrywide. Terms and conditions apply. Pepsi, for the love of it.
Welcome back from that very short commercial break. Now, before we broke off, we were just about to get the phone ringing, and it was Faith, or rather Life, interviewing our guest tonight. LB says that oftentimes when one door closes, another door opens. But oftentimes we spend a lot of time crying and looking at the closed door that we sometimes forget or even miss out on the other doors that could be opened. We're just about to get to one of the doors that opened. He calls them, or rather he calls it, a catalyst to who he is today. Mr. Namale.
Yes, sir.
Take us back to when this colleague remembers, hey, I have this crazy guy that we had at college.
Yeah, so there is an opportunity.
Yeah.
He's been tasked with an responsibility of getting someone who can work,
Yeah.
because that vacancy has come up.
Yeah.
And he remembers me. Remember, he is not even a friend. He is a colleague at school,
Yeah.
a classmate.
Yeah.
We're not even this close. He could call anybody.
In the army, they like to use the word comrade.
Yeah, he's a comrade.
Because you were just
Yeah.
on the same course at the time.
At that time,
Yeah.
we are not that close. didn't even do life together.
Yeah.
We were just in the same class, but he would marvel. Life was interviewing me because he would marvel at what I was doing.
Yeah.
And this life, when life interviews you, the results are normally not necessarily at the end of the month or maybe at the end of the day. It can be 5 years down the line.
Yeah.
And so he calls me and tells me there's an opportunity here.
Hey.
He recommends me to the boss of that particular organization. The boss gives me, I could say, a mock interview, so to speak, just to know who I am, but the job was already given because of that recommendation. And so I got into this organization, and again I remember myself that what I used to do at college is the exact thing that I'm going to do in this place. I'm going to turn this place right side up, upside down. I'm going to know everything there is to know here. It took me 7 months to be able to crack that. I understood everything there was there. I'm not a good graphic designer, but I can teach you Illustrator, I can teach you CorelDRAW, I can teach you nearly all the graphic packages.
Yeah.
Because I learned those things. I applied myself. Remember when I said that when life gives you an opportunity, you take it. You do 100%. I did accounting packages, I did all these things, I did every single thing that was not about consultancy in IT, in that organization, and then I got bored. And I was afraid. One of my biggest weaknesses is daring. I was afraid of getting out because I knew that I have this job. If I get out, I'm not going to get another one.
Why?
So I stayed there for 5 years. And that's one of the things that I need to tell people, that when you know you've outlived your usefulness in an organization, and I'm talking to the youth, because the youth, they have an opportunity to experiment a lot. Time is on their hands. If you're using an analogy of the runway, an airplane on the runway, they have a bigger runway than adults. Yeah. So they can experiment. And that's why I am asking the youth, if you know at one point in time that you have outlived your usefulness, you don't feel that place, you don't feel like you're utilizing your passion, your energy, your treasure, your gifts anymore, you've got to move out, even if there is no opportunity. And I know this one is sick to say, because I stayed in that place for 5 years. Doing what? I believe those 5 years were wasted. Because at the end of the day, I walked out of that job with no promise of another one. Yeah. And that was one of the most interesting moments in my life, because there was no income, no food, no rent. Go to a particular place where the landlord will come, demand their money in the morning, and then in the afternoon they send me food.
Which year is this?
This is 2006 there, 2007, around there. Yeah? So it's happening to me that way, because I decided let me just walk out of this. And I stayed in a very difficult moment, but that moment was never wasted. Yeah. Difficult moments are never wasted. Sometimes we are scared of them, but they are good in shaping us and tuning us and fine-tuning us. Again, we don't take life for granted when we go through a difficult situation. We don't take life for granted when we lack things. We appreciate life. We know how good life is when we are on our wits' end, and then life turns around. So at that moment in time, something happens. Another phone call. This one is from my mentor. And we need to have mentors in life, because I do believe that our connections in life, actually that's the key word here, connections. Let me tell you something very probably controversial. There is more power in connections than in merit. There are guys who have PhDs, qualified to do things that are jobless, but there are guys who are connected that are working. There is merit in your degree, your diploma, your certificate, but without connections, you're doing yourself a great disservice. You need to network. You need to have people that can be able to remember you. And remember, the key to connections is not just that I know Sabiiti. The key to connections is Sabiiti has value. That's the key.
He brings something to the marketplace,
there's something about that Sabiiti guy. So it keeps ringing in the minds of people. Life is always Googling for solutions. People are always Googling for solutions. So when an opportunity comes, Sabiiti comes to the head of the guy who's looking for the opportunity to be filled. So this guy calls me and says there's this new organization that has started. This new project that has started with Safaricom. We are trying to see how we can be able to send money on the phone. The idea is called M-Pesa. And we have hired an organization. He was a project manager of M-Pesa.
Yeah.
We've hired an organization, a third party, to help us to recruit agents and train agents and manage them and so on. They are looking for an IT guy. And I know you have IT, so go there and see what you can be able to do with them. And so I'll go to that place. And the miracle here is that Safaricom, the key organization, and this third party will never employ someone who doesn't have a degree.
Oh.
But this connection knew me and knew the value that I had. He recommended me there. Now let me tell you something about recommendations from connections. When I recommend you, the only thing I'm doing is opening the door for you. What you
happens
do
inside?
Once you stepped into the door, that's up to you. You get?
Yeah.
So you have to be building a lot of value inside of you.
Yeah.
Again, when I got into that organization, I turned it right side up, upside down, and all that stuff. As in, streamlined everything. Go to the manager and tell the CEO, we need to buy computers in this place. Bought computers for everyone. Networked all those computers. Help people. Work was streamlined. People used to leave office at 12 midnight. But once Lawrence got into that organization, people were leaving work at 5. And this is a Lawrence who doesn't have a degree. So what did I do? I added value. And remember, this value that I was adding, guess what it was? It was the only thing that I had back then, like a diploma.
Yeah.
That was the only thing that I had, and I decided to maximize the diploma. So I got into this organization, and I changed things to such an extent that I now start telling the boss, give me work. I want to work. As in, I will finish my work at 10 a.m. in the morning. And the rest of the day, there is nothing to do. So I go to the boss, give me work. And I'm like, I have outlived my usefulness in this position. Please send me to the field. Said, oh, Lawrence, in the field, it's only guys who are having degrees. You don't qualify. But I didn't. I kept pestering the boss. and so on. I don't know if we have time, but what happened later on is I used to observe my manager's work. And there was an assistant manager who was the laziest of all. Let me tell you, a problem with motivational speakers and creators like us is that we can use you as an example anywhere. Very lazy.
Very much so.
But
even a dead clock is twice a day.
Exactly. So you see, this boss would, instead of doing their work, they would be playing solitaire on the computer, and then when push comes to shove, they push the responsibility or the blame to those of us who are under them. Right? And you take the flak and so on and so forth. And me, at some point in time, I stood up and said, no, can't be like this. And I was overheard by some people saying that I can do a better job than that boss, which is actually true. It was true. And that boss, the problem is that they were very close to the CEO like this.
So there's not much you...
The CEO summons me to the office and says, Lawrence, I've been told about you. You are lazy, you are rude, you are insolent. I don't know what is keeping me from firing you. I do not know what it is. It was just after the post-election violence in Kenya. I don't know what it is. I came with a mandate to fire you, but I don't know what is keeping me from firing you. But this is what we're going to do. From now on, you are going to be on half salary indefinitely. And by the way, the salary itself was not even a salary. It's something that you're struggling with. Now it's cut into half. And in addition, we're going to swap your responsibilities. You remember, you see that guy who leaves work at midnight and comes and works on Saturday and Sunday? You're going to take his responsibilities. He's going to take yours. Indefinitely.
All of a sudden there's a
change in the
dark
atmosphere.
cloud.
There's
where is the silver lining?
The silver lining is still in the story. Because I retreated to my office. And my office was just a corner, by the way, some small corner, this obscure corner. Should I get out of this organization? Because to be honest with you, I am innocent. I am very innocent. Even this boss who is steady putting me on half salary, they know I've been pestering them for work and they have not been giving me work.
Yeah.
So I said, should I not? I decided that let me take up this responsibility.
As I try to
figure myself out. But
yeah.
I sat down and I said, how best can I do this work? I realized that this guy was using, it's basically like, I don't know what example I can be able to use. If you wanted to cut this surface properly, probably he's using, let me say he's using a spoon to try and cut this.
Yeah.
In other words, he's using packages that are not suited to the work he's doing. That's why he was leaving work early. But the organization did not, the efficiency, that's it.
Yeah.
The organization did not know how to be efficient.
Actually,
did not tool this guy to give them the efficiency. And actually it's not even the organization. The problem was the client. The tools he was using were the templates that the client had sent to us.
Yeah.
So I sat down and I wrote an email to the client and I said, on Monday, we're going to change the way we are doing reports. I know you're the guys who gave us this format, but I'm going to change. And I thank God for flexible clients.
Yeah.
Progressive clients.
Yeah.
Who is Safaricom?
Must have, Safaricom, for those of you who are probably wondering what we are talking about, maybe joining us for the first time, we have a guest tonight. His name is Mr. Namale from Kenya, born of 79, a man from Eldoret. Safaricom is the biggest telecom in Kenya, and it's a local company. So we're talking the MTNs of this world, we're talking the Airtels of this world, and at the turn of I think 10 years after the turn of the millennium, we're having a revolution. Mobile, what we call mobile money in Uganda is M-Pesa in Kenya, and actually that's where this whole mobile money thing started from, as M-Pesa. And we are so privileged to have a gentleman who had a hand in some of the processes that happened behind the closed scenes.
Yes.
So the efficiency.
So I realized again, remember, in my previous job, what was I doing? 100%, turning it upside down, learning everything there is to learn. And I learned there that there was a package that could work better than what these guys were using. And they were not deploying it. I was the only one who knew it. So what did I do? I write to the client and tell them we're going to change the way the reports are going to be done from Monday. The client says, bring it on.
It's fun.
We will see and then we will advise. Up to today, they've never advised. It was that good. It was that good. And now, I'm vindicated because I'm not leaving work at midnight like the guy. Because when I was sentenced to this guy's responsibility, people just started laughing, say, that guy's goose is cooked. He's out. Because this guy is lazy and so on.
It's the end of the road.
For me, it's efficiency. Let me tell you, as a boss, if I'm a boss, I'm not that kind of boss that wants people to work from 8 to 9. As long as you are efficient and you're doing your work, I'm okay. Alright? There's hard work and then there's working smart, but let me not get into that. So I'm vindicated. I continue getting out of work at 5 because I had other things to do. I was in drama, I was in charge and whatever. So I still leaving work at 5, and the organization, the client, is actually pleased with my work. And the problem is, the other guy who has now replaced me started messing up, and the organization started complaining about his work, which I was doing well
previously.
So I was vindicated. At that moment in time, guess what, Sabiiti?
Tell me.
At that moment in time, telecos were coming up. It was mobile telephony was up there in Africa. So the MTNs of this world had the biggest problem. They're calling it churn. Churn means I buy a SIM card, use the 5K that you've given me in the SIM card, I throw the SIM card away. But when M-Pesa comes, you can't throw away your SIM card, which has mobile money in it. So they solved that churn problem. Then the Safaricom, the MTNs and the Airtels of this world, they went to Kenya to to try and find out how can we do the same thing
here in Uganda. I think I recall that little bit.
So what happens is that this organization, Safaricom, tells them you have a system, technology, but technology is not enough. You need a third party. And those guys are the ones who are able to do it for you. They're going to recruit your agents, manage them, and so on and so forth. Those guys are my organization now, from which I was doing half salary at that moment in time, indefinitely. So the boss gets to MTN goes to the boss and they hammer a deal. She's supposed to send 2 people to Uganda in 2009 so that they can consult with them and help them to roll out mobile money. She looks in the organization, whom can I send to Uganda? Now let me tell you, as a boss, one of the things that you need to do in your organization is to stock your organization with top-notch people who can actually replace you. People that you trust, people that are efficient. Not yes men and yes women. People who can give you recommendations, people who can work with you, people who have bought into your vision more than even yourself. And you take care of those people well, you pay them well, and so on and so forth. But then this boss looks at the organization, 50 scales down the line, that's where I was. There was no one as good as I was. So she picks one guy from the top, and then me from the bottom. And this is what I was telling you about interviews. Life was doing an interview every day. I never attended an interview to go to Uganda as an expatriate. Never. I never attended an interview to come here. I was called to the office and I was told, Lawrence, there is an opportunity. There's an opportunity here for you to go to Uganda, and I want you to go and think about it, and when you've thought about it, just come. Meanwhile, I was still on that indefinite salary, half salary. Right? I am thinking, Lord, I am going to Uganda. But then I feigned, I pretended that I'm going to think about it. But I made my decision.
You knew.
I knew I'm going.
Opportunity had showed up.
When the appointment letter comes, the salary was 10 times what I was earning at that moment in time.
Wow.
I never attended. This is an opportunity, this is a chance where you advertise in newspapers, you're looking for expatriates to send them to a particular country. They didn't do that because they knew they had the quality in their vicinity. And what was the answer there? Whatever opportunity you're given, do your absolute best with it. Life is interviewing you. Life is going to reward you one way or another. Life always rewards people who are performing all the time. Not necessarily in terms of money and all that, but life in physics. For every action,
there's an opposite
there's
reaction.
An equal but opposite reaction. Every input you have in life
will have a reward.
Is going to have a reward. Now the thing is this: the input can be positive, it can be negative, but the reward is going to come in equal measure.
Fine gentlemen, words can't express the symbolism of who we are, or rather who we have in our midst. When we talked about how lethal he is, we meant it. I would like to believe that you are inspired, you are not just motivated, but that this man will have some wording written in one chapter, at least, of your life. Now, before we get to the close, there is an African proverb that says, when there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. He's been talking the entire time about that voice in the inside of you that says, you can do this, you can get better, you actually can get out of this dark cloud, look out for the silver lining when the rough patches of life, call in. The times that life hits you and gets you on the knees, the times that you're forced to call life uncle. Now, in the last 5 minutes of the show, we would like to speak to and about the African youth. I know you have that much passion. You've definitely been in now Uganda for 13 years, worked in Kenya. East Africa now has 6 countries, I think. 6 countries now with Congo. weaving scale to the continent in its entirety. What are those things that you think the African youth needs to address, that need to change about them? It's a question I ask every guest I have on the show, but it's interesting how diverse the responses or the answer or how it's tackled. It's interesting, and not just to me but also to the dear viewers from the feedback that we get. What are those things that you think the youths need to change to become the better version of themselves, as you say, that they can, what are they that they can do to discover their purpose, fulfill actually that calling, that special unique thing about them?
So the good thing about youth, like I said earlier on, is that they have a longer runway.
Yeah.
They have a longer runway than the adults.
Yeah.
All right. But if I was to equate what you should do as a youth, I'm going to give you a character in the Bible, or maybe several characters in the Bible, but let me just start with one character. It's called John the Baptist.
Yeah.
One of the key words they use for John the Baptist is that he was wild. He lived in the wild. I think the youth of Africa, we've got to be wild. We have conformed so much. We need to
the soft life.
To the soft life. We are not looking at transformation. We're looking at what can I get out of this life.
Yeah.
We need to change, and we start looking at what can I give into this life. What can I give into this life? We need to look at life from the angle of what is life requiring of me, not what am I requiring out of this life.
Yeah.
In other words, we need to be wild. We need to start realizing that inside of us we have solutions that are waiting to happen. I am a solution.
Yeah.
You are a solution. Everyone else out there is a solution. In whatever niche, it can be in music, it can be in governance, it can be in education, whatever it is, all the youth in Africa, I believe we are solutions, and we need to embrace that, and we need to get wild. That means we need to start experimenting. We need to start failing as much as possible. Because if you have a pendulum that is switching from failure to success, the more you fail, the more you succeed.
Yeah.
So we've got to start failing wildly. We are so safe.
Yeah.
Let us get out of a safe space and really be wild and experiment and fail until we succeed. Because the answer is not in conformity, the answer is not in comfortableness, the answer is in wildness. It is in pushing the edge. When you're standing at the edge of the cliff, you are more alive than when you're in your bed sleeping. So be wild. Push your limits. That's all I can tell the youth of Africa and Uganda in particular.
Wow. He says in his words, look around, look within, listen to that voice that tells you you can do this. Don't get so afraid to fail, because like again he says, we will not get out of this world alive. So how about we stop walking through this life, tiptoeing, like we have a second life.
Like we have 200 years to live.
Like we have been a huge pleasure, Mr. Namale. I like I always say, it's usually very, very hard to squeeze people's stories, and more so his story, into just 1 hour of TV airtime. Once again, it's always a pleasure knowing that you are tuned in and watching us from the other side. And we do this every Thursday from 8 to 9 p.m. only on Church of Uganda Family TV. My name is Apollo Sabiiti. Now, join me next week as we get the butter from the duck, like this gentleman did over here. We would like to have just one phrase, one word you could leave to someone who is watching us tonight.
Youth in Uganda, one word: baby steps never failed even a 70-year-old. Bye-bye.
Purpose trainer, life and executive coach here on the show. Next week we'll be having someone of a kind. See you next time.
Alcohol intoxicates the mind and releases the emotions and lets down our guard.
I want to remind you that the greatest of all is God's love. That's what we need to seek for. And once we have God's love is permanent. Once it fills our heart, we're able to overflow and share this love to the others.
Have you given to the Lord even when you have the smallest coin like that widow? Jesus said, look at this widow. She has done it better than all these people because she gave all that she had.
I pray for full restoration, full resurrection, full rejuvenation of the joy of the Lord.